Hello, I want to talk about the power of the needle and Madame Grès. She was a master at using that jersey, silk jersey that she used. She sculpted it and formed it into, using pleats, but formed it into these shapes. I promise you, you are not getting this from Shein. That is what haute couture is. If you look up haute couture, she's gonna be on the list. The area that I'm so interested in, and this always stood out for me, was how she used the power of the needle to kind of stick it to the Germans. In 1942, after she married a Russian painter, Serge, I will not pronounce his last name, I just will, butcher it. She began designing under her name, Madame Grès. That wasn't always her name. It was Alix Barton. Madame Grès was born 1903 and she died 1993. She was born to a Jewish middle-class family. That will be important later on. She was raised in Paris, France. She studied painting and sculpting, which is probably how she took sculpting and put jersey together. It really is amazing in terms of how she did it with pleating. I remember going to the Met and seeing an exhibit of her garments, and they had a pattern that was on display, and it literally went around the room. It just went all the way around the room. But the area of her business that I found fascinating was how she stuck it to the Germans, and that's that power of the needle. During World War II, after she created Madame Grès, German troops invaded Paris and occupied Paris. And during the war, German forces demanded that Madame Grès create bleak and utilitarian clothing. Now, what's so interesting about this part of it is that why? That wasn't what was the purpose of her not designing what she designs? She was a master at what she does, but that's that level of control that a government wants to have over people. So anyway, that's what they wanted her to do, and it was in complete contrast to what her personal style was, what her designing, her craft. It was just different. And even though she was Jewish, the wives of German officers requested that she design dresses for them. Another power of the needle. She said no. She wasn't interested. She wasn't interested in that and turned them down. One of the gowns from the period features 2 small stars of David sewn on the inside. So that was another sticking it to the man, so to speak. What she did do is defy the orders, and she continued designing garments in the colors of the French flag. And that gets into the thing where I wanted to encourage designers to use red, black, and green in their designs. It's that subtlety. It's that little bit of wink, that thing that you stick it to. You're sticking it to them, or you're just showing people where you're at. What defines you? What is important to you? What they did was they claimed her generous use of fabric. It was generous. It was. I told you about the pattern that went all the way around the room. Her generous use of fabric during wartime was the reason for them closing her couture house. And she fled to Pyrenees and stayed there until Paris was liberated in 1944. With closing of her first couture house, Grès began designing again and opened her second house, returning to her now signature name. I'll end there, but there's certainly a lot more about Madame Grès that is fascinating. Hope you do some more research, and thanks for watching.